Hey guys, um, I had a request to go over exactly how I did my axle on this 1/16 scale Peterbilt. Um, the first thing I do is I get some of these little nails. I believe they're used to hold down HO scale railroad tracks. I'm not positive. There's many kinds you can get. Artisania Latina is what it says in the bag. But like I said, you don't have to get this exact diameter. You don't have to get them in brass. Brass helps because it's easier to cut. But I use this for all my pivot points because you don't have to worry about them breaking. The diameter can be small because it's metal. You don't have to worry about it breaking. But you can get bigger diameter if you want. But what you're going to do is you're going to take one of these. I knew I wouldn't be prepared. You're going to take one of these little nails. And the calipers are a big must in doing this kind of work, guys, because it just makes it so much easier for you to measure things. We're going to take these calipers and measure the diameter of that pin, that nail. It's 29 thousandths. I always forget how to read this thing. 0.0295. Then you're going to find you a drill bit that matches that size. This one's a tiny bit smaller. And it's okay to go a tiny bit smaller if you're using a pin vise like this. When you're drilling, you're not drilling dead straight like a drill press would, or if you're using a drill like this, which I love this thing. Tamaya. It's a little model kit you put together, and it works awesome. I've covered this before, but this is really great to have. But with this, it's easier because you can hold it straight. But it's kind of hard to tell looking at the drill and the part if you're actually going straight. Because you can't look at all angles at the same time. But that's what I do. I get the nails and then the drill bit. Take the axle. I have to show you my completed one because this is the only 1/16 scale truck I have. Take the axle and you're going to drill through the spindle. This is the spindle. This is the axle. You're going to drill through the spindle about halfway down. Okay? Then you're going to flip it, start right in the dead center, and drill it halfway down. The reason you do that is so your drill bit will stay straight through the axle. If you try to go from here all the way through to the other side of the spindle, your drill bit may be a little crooked and it'll come out crooked. This is a way to help ensure that your pin, your king pin as it will be referred to, is nice and straight. So get that done. Do the same on the tie rod. You want to drill everything first. Then what you're going to do is you need some little bitty saw blades like these. And they have better ones. I'm going to be ordering some here soon. They have some that are smaller from here to here. They make kind of an arc, and then they have some that do little, real thin at the end. I'm going to get some of those. Those will make it even a lot better, a lot easier to cut. But these go in your number 11 knife handle. Just take out your blade. Try 15 times to get the damn thing in. And now you've got a mini little saw. These work great for all kinds of stuff. It's super thin. I can show the end. Super thin. Now what you're going to do, this is going to be kind of hard to point out. On the spindle, you're going to cut as far up to the spindle as you can. Like where this flat part is right here, try to cut right against that flat part, because you can shim the spindle, but it's better to not have to shim the axle. So cut as close as you can to the spindle here, and as close as you can here. I guess it'd be better to hold it down here. And once you've cut through, you've already got your hole drilled, so you know it's going to line right back up. Okay, now the saw is going to remove material, so you're going to have a gap in here. Okay, and what you're going to do is just take a piece of sheet plastic and throw it at it. You don't have to worry about making it to shape or anything yet. Just throw it on there, let the glue dry really good. And after it has, then you can go back and use your clippers and, you know, clip away most of it, the excess around the spindle. And then take your little files or sanding sticks and carefully sand it to the shape of the spindle. That way, once it's painted, it blends in with the spindle. And you're just going to do that for both sides, and that's going to make your spindles turn. You know, not hard at all. Just take your time. Now, on the tie rod, the one thing you got to be careful of is, you see how I had to beef it up here with super glue, because there's a little bit of resistance on the kingpins. You know, that way it stays in place. They're not flopping everywhere. There's no slack at all in this axle. I forgot to mention, you want to leave the hole tight on the spindle, but you can go ahead and re-drill the axle hole so it's just a little bit easier for that nail to go through. That provides the pivot point in the axle, and you can glue the pin on the spindles. That way everything stays, you know, movable, and it's not bound up so much. But on the tie rod, like I said, you're going to want to glue them. What I've done here is I've put a metal bone, that I call it. Let me see it. Right here. See that little brass nail right there? I put that through into the tie rod arm. God, this thing's so hard to figure out where you're at. I did it into this tie rod arm. Okay? That makes it 100 times more strong. If you just put glue here on this joint, more than likely it's going to break, because that's a lot of weight that you're turning. You know, if you don't lift the truck up and you turn a wheel, man, it's going to bust all that stuff. It's just too much weight. So I put a little bone in there, okay, glued these arms on, and then on the ends of the arms, when I cut the arms off the tie rod, it took the ends of the arms. So it's like, these are the old ends of the arm. Basically the ends of the arm and the tie rod right here. So I had to make this new one out of white rod and then drill it with that tiny drill bit in the pin vise so that it accepted the nail. Once you get your tie rod all assembled is when you're going to want to glue it to the axle. That way you can position it and make sure that the steering ends up dead straight. You know, you don't want to have a model where one side is turned and the other side is straight. So that's how you're going to attach the tie rod. Now, if you want to go further, what I've done here is, on the drag link, I've taken the drag link and I shortened it. I cut it just a little bit. I took a piece of white styrene rod and I drilled into the end of it so that this could be glued into the rod instead of butting up against it, which is a weak joint. Okay, with it going into the rod, that's rock solid, very solid. Okay, now the pitman arm I had a little trouble with. I had to fashion this new piece out of styrene because it was so thin and so weak that it didn't hold up to all the filing and sanding. Here. Once I got that all on, braced with super glue really good, filed to how I liked it, I went ahead and I drilled through the pitman arm without the rod, figured out where the rod was supposed to be as far as being clocked correctly, which mine's off just a tiny bit, but the nail fell out. But you got to make sure that your pitman rod, your drag link, that the nail going through it is 90 degrees. Then you got to make sure that the nail going through the pitman arm is 90 degrees to that nail in the front of the pitman arm. Okay, and then it's pretty simple the rest of the way. I just drilled through the steering box, put it into a, which this really... Well, no, what I did was I put a styrene rod on the bottom of the pitman arm, back of it, that was the same diameter as the big hole that was in this steering box. That hole's already there. It's to accept the molded on pin of this. I had cut that off. Put my own styrene rod. Then on the inside, I just put a piece of styrene tube over the rod so that it holds it inside the steering box. Pretty simple. And then this is just a nut for detail. Little aluminum nut I had made. And then, see if I can do this where they'll stay together here. You can see I didn't get it. Ah, damn, something got my elbow. Something. I didn't get it. Good Lord. I didn't get it perfectly 90 degrees to the one in the pitman arm. It's fine. It's just a tiny, tiny bit off. But then you're going to want to put this in here in the spindle arm. Come on. Don't get old. It sucks. You start shaking. That goes in there. It's a tight fit on here. Yeah. Keeping everything a tight fit is really good. It just makes everything work nicer. This thing's a butt to figure out where it goes. I don't know why, but they got the steering shaft coming out of the steering box going right towards the cab mount. I don't know how it looks on the real thing, but that's odd to me. But you just gotta line it up. Come on. Get in that hole. Damn it. You little PS. But you get that on there and then ear. And that basically completes the linkage. Now you can get real technical and get some bevel gears and put them inside this steering box and actually make it to where the steering wheel will turn the axle. Which, it ain't a contest truck. I'm not trying to go that far. I just figure, while it's apart, what's the harm to add a little bit more detail, But let me think a minute. Make sure I covered everything. I think that about covers it. If you have any questions on anything specific, let me know. This is basically for Charlie Ostrom. He's the one that wanted me to make this video. But I hope it helps anybody else. This exact same procedure works for any other scale. As long as you're able to, get in there and saw and things like that. The smaller scales, it's going to be a little harder. But this is what I do on my smaller scales as well. Let me see if I have one here handy to show you. I did it on my Revell Peterbilt build. I got so much junk up here. Oh, well, I guess not. I don't have those up here. But I've done it on the Revell Peterbilt. I did it on my AMT Peterbilt 352. It takes a little time, but it's so much more worth it, I think. To have a steering axle rather than it just be straight. When it's just straight, it's almost kind of like it's just a toy, So, like I said, if you have any questions, just let me know and I'll be happy to answer them. See ya.